Okay, distance time graphs. A distance time graph is used to describe a journey, and you'll see when we look at an example in a minute, this will all make sense. The vertical axis, or the y-axis, represents the distance from the starting point, and the horizontal axis, which we know as the x-axis, represents the time. The steepness or the slopeness of the graph represents the speed, as in the steeper the line, the faster the pace. The faster the speed. So the steeper the line, the faster. Okay, and also that means the flatter the line, the slower the speed. Okay, a horizontal line, right? So if the line is not moving up at all, right? Okay, the person or the object, whatever, whether it's a car or a bicycle or whatever, has stopped. Okay, and I'm going to show you a graph now, so we can just see those examples. Okay, so bear with me now while I just sort this out. Okay, now, okay, so right, if we look at this graph down here, this is a cyclist. Okay, so the distance here in kilometers up the side, right, and the time in hours is across the bottom. So the line represents his journey. So he set off, right, from home at 0, the time was 0, right, and after 1 hour he had cycled 20 kilometers, right, away from home. He was gone 20 kilometers from home, and he's at this point B. He then stopped. Remember, we said a horizontal line represents him stopping. So between B and C he has stopped. So he stopped for a half an hour there, right? Then he got going again, and he cycled up to D, which is 60 kilometers from home. He then stopped again, so he stopped for another half hour, right? Okay, and then E to F means he went all the way home in one go. Right, just in terms of his speed, he's quite slow here, right? He's going faster between C and D. How do I know he's going faster? It's a steeper line, right? Okay, and he's going the fastest he can go between E and F, right? Okay, so that's the steepest line, and the fact that it's coming down just means he's going in the opposite direction. Okay, another example here would be this graph here. Okay, so this is a distance time graph for the journey of a family traveling from a French ferry port to a campsite for their holidays, and they're going 590 kilometers. So this is them at the ferry port, this is them at the campsite, which is 590 kilometers away. Okay, describe which line segment or point is appropriate for these statements. We will have lunch now, right? Okay, so lunch is they've stopped for lunch, so it's one of their stops. So they've stopped between C and D, they've stopped between E and F, and they've stopped between G and H, but I would say E and F is probably the lunch because that's between 1 and 2. Okay, which is the fastest section? So that means we're looking for the steepest line. So they're moving from A to B, they're moving from D to E, they're moving from F to G, and I think H to J is the fastest, it's the steepest line, so that's their fastest. At last we have arrived, that's point J, they're done. We're only stopping for petrol, so that's a really short stop. So I think that's G to H, it's a flat line, so they've stopped and it's quite short. This is the slowest section, so I think the slowest section is probably between A and B, right? Okay, because it's the flattest line, it's not the less steep line. And this is the longest section, so where did they travel the most kilometers? So A to B, they probably went about 50, B to C, they went about 100, D to E, they went from maybe 100 and something up to 300 something, so that's about 200. That's quite short here as well, that's about 100, and this one's about 190. I would say D to E, right, is the longest section. So as you can see, right, these graphs can tell a story. Okay, so I have one more graph to show you, okay, and it's not a distance speed graph, but an actually height time, or a distance time graph. It's a height time, and height is the same, it's bath time, right? Okay, so this is somebody having a bath. Okay, this is the height of the water level, right, and this is the time. So for 5 minutes it's filling, the level is going up, so they're obviously turned on the tap, right? So they probably had the hot tap on here, then it started filling faster, so they probably have both taps on here, right? So after 10 minutes, right, okay, there's a sharp rise, so I think that's where the person got into the bath. Okay, so at 10 minutes they got into the bath, took them 10 minutes to fill the bath, right, and they filled it up to 40 centimeters. When they got into the bath, the water level went up, because they're now sitting inside it, up to 80 centimeters, right? There was no movement there, right, from 10 over to 25, right? So they sat in the bath for 15 minutes, right? Then they got out of the bath, right? So the water level went back down, and then they obviously took out the plug, because the water just emptied out. So these are just examples of distance time graphs, right? And that's it for this section.